Morrowind, like most RPGs, lets you customize your character's appearance and background. You can be a cunning Wood Elf archer, a powerful Breton Battlemage, or even a farming implement. And as we know, not all heroes wear capes. They come in all shapes and sizes. So, what if, like Yagrum Bagarn, your character couldn't use their legs? You'd be like Bran Stark from Game of Thrones, except more interesting and relevant. What if a Daedric prince cursed you with a member so large that you couldn't walk? Could you still complete the game? Well, allow me to answer that question.
Sorry, stranger, my time is short, so get on with it.
Any time now. Any time now. Go ahead, stranger. Let's hear it. This is the end. Bitter.
Arriving on the shores of Vardenfell, nothing seemed to be out of the ordinary, except for the fact that I'm cursed with 100 fat loots. Carrying this much fat loot prevents me from walking, running, jumping, or swimming. This extra weight is shown by the blue bar and the carry capacity number above my character inventory screen. You may have noticed the timer as well. This will be present throughout the rest of the video. This is to keep track of the time taken as I complete the challenge. Spoiler alert, I don't quite get the any % run I was hoping for. At this point, you're probably asking yourself, how is he moving with a full inventory? Is he using some kind of console command, or a mod? Can I boot up my Xbox right now and do the same thing? How will he complete the game when there are things like revolving Dwemer doors that even the average Andys struggle to get through on a normal playthrough? Well, allow me to break it down for you. Something rather interesting happens when you sneak in third person. Pay close attention to how my character moves. When you sneak as a non-beast race in Morrowind, your character shifts their weight to the right foot momentarily before shifting it back to their left. This slight back and forth movement actually moves your character's position in the world, even when over-encumbered. When you let go of the sneak button, your character's animation immediately returns to idle at your current position. So, if you time it correctly, you can let go of the sneak button when your character moves to the right, and it will cancel out the return part of the animation. Do this enough times, and you can move without walking or running. By the way, this happens in both Open Morrowind and the original Xbox and PC versions of the game, but it's not as straightforward as just spamming the sneak button to move. See, if your character takes a step while rotating, like this, it will lock the sneak animation from moving your character. At least until you reload, that is. The problem is, I can't save the game until I get the package for Caius. I end up taking a step as I'm turning this corner here, and because I can't reload, it's back to square one. Born again, I find myself cursed with fat loot. This time, I diligently turn the corner without stepping. Switching to first person prevents my character from stepping during the rotation, as your character only steps in third person. In first person, there's no need to play the stepping animation. I take the large Kwama egg on the bookshelf and leave the rusty dagger on the table. It will become evident later why not taking the dagger was such a huge mistake. I take Fargoth's ring and the package for Caius and enter into Seydanine proper. Now let's break down the plan for this run. I'm here in Seydanine. To complete the game, I need to destroy the heart of Lorkhan in Red Mountain that's guarded by the big angry bad of Morrowind. But it's not as simple as strolling over there and giving Mr. the Telvanni tussle. You see, I need 3 legendary tools. The Hammer Sunder, kept in Vemenor, the Dagger Keening, kept in Odrasol, and last but not least, to protect myself from harm, the Gauntlet Wraithguard, which is being looked after by one of the ruling gods of Morrowind, Vivek. But in the famous words of John Halo, I need a weapon. So, our first stop is Balmora. I'd be lying if I told you that I hadn't created a macro that executes the sneak move perfectly. It reminds me of the Korean backdash from Tekken, just much less sophisticated. I get to the Silt Strider roughly an hour later, and with a measly 87 gold, go to Balmora. On the way to the Mages Guild, I take a small detour and pay a visit to Revere, the local drug dealer who talks absolute shite about his weapons being Daedric in quality. Because we don't take kindly to their types around here, I challenge him to a trial by combat. I forget to take the bow and arrows, but do take a hefty steel warhammer and some valuable enchanted weapons. I get to the Mages Guild, join up, and take the supplies in the chest. The most important of these supplies being the Divine Intervention Scrolls. More on this soon. I crab my way through the guild halls, and when I get in range of the beds, I rest to spawn some assassins. I kill them and take their gear so I can sell it for some early gold. I know I'm new to the guild and all, but some help would have been appreciated. Using the fantastic teleportation service on offer at the Mages Guild, I teleport to Wolverine Hall. Here is where I sell the Dark Brotherhood gear. I then buy it back and sell it again when she has more gold to make sure the juice is worth the squeeze. Now that I have a large stash of gold, I teleport to the Vivec Mages Guild. Buy Mark and Recall, crucial spells that would make this challenge impossible otherwise. I also buy alchemy equipment while I'm here, because why settle for a boring challenge run when you can make it even more boring by breaking the game with alchemy? Now that I have the alchemy equipment, it's time to get the ingredients. Using the teleport service again, I teleport back to the Mages Guild in Wolverine Hall. Once I'm there, I use the mark spell near the teleporter so I can come back later. I use one of the Divine Intervention Scrolls to teleport me to the nearest Imperial Shrine. It's in here that I'll find all of the ingredients that I need. Firstly, from Silius Sodus, I'll buy marshmallow and salt rice for restore health potions. He also sells, but doesn't restock, Shork resin and vampire dust. I can combine these with the Kwama egg that I took at the start of the game to make a fortify health potion. I'm hoping this will give me enough HP to tank the damage from Sunder and Keening, thereby bypassing the need to get Wraithguard. An interesting quirk of Morrowind is that if you sell an ingredient that a merchant restocks, they'll then restock the amount that is currently in their inventory. Therefore, I can exponentially increase the number of ingredients that these guys are selling. Biggest Dickus in the corner here happens to sell the ingredients for a Fortify Intelligence potion. Now, one of the factors that affects the quality of the potions you brew in Morrowind is your intelligence attribute. So you can make potions to increase your intelligence, which makes your potions better, which makes your intelligence higher, which makes your potions better. You get where I'm going with this. If you're looking for a better explanation of how to break the game with alchemy, I recommend checking out this video by Just Background Noise, who obviously needs no introduction if you're watching this video. The link's in the description anyway. I make my potions, cast Recall, then use the Mages Guild teleporter to go to Aldrune. I shimmy my way over to the mage by the entrance and buy the telekinesis spell from him. This should extend my interaction range, hopefully saving me some time. Then I'll waste about 2 minutes crabbing over to the door instead of casting Divine Intervention. I still have a habit of making sure I'm outside before casting any intervention spell, because back in the day it used your last exterior location to extrapolate the nearest intervention point. This was fixed in a patch released in July 2002, 4 months before Tribunal was released. Old habits die hard indeed. After casting Divine Intervention, I put another mark down. I buy some arrows inside Fort Hawkmoth, because what else am I going to do with my bow? Frisbee it? Now I'm fully equipped to deal with the challenges of Red Mountain, hopefully. Recalling back outside, I begin my journey towards Ghostgate. On more than one occasion, I get stopped by the guards, but it's not like your average stop and search. They form some sort of wall that stops me from physically leaving, which is quite effective because mentally I left about 7 hours ago. When I finally realise what's happening, I adjust my character, reload a few times, and slip by. I did consider taking the Silkstrider to Margan, travelling over to the 6th house base Coggaroon, then entering Red Mountain through a back door that would take me close to the entrance of Vemenol. This does require some swimming though, and you can't swim while you're over encumbered. And while swimming doesn't equal running or walking, I'd prefer to stay over encumbered for the sake of maintaining consistency. So what I'll actually be doing is, once I pass Ghostgate, I'll head towards Vemenol. Once I'm roughly between Vemenol and Odrasol, I'll cast a mark so that I don't have to backtrack. Then, when I've collected Sunder, I'll cast Recall, move over towards Odrasol, and on the way, place down another mark as close to Dagothur as I can. That way, I can do the same thing and I can minimise travel time. Then it'll just be a case of giving it to Daddy Dagoth. About 7.5 hours after I left Buckmoth, I get killed by a cliff racer. I'm not even mad at this point, I'm just happy I get to do something different. This journey to Ghostgate has been like watching paint dry. It takes me about 8 minutes to realise that I've died. If you're curious about the distance I could have travelled in those 8 minutes I spent incapacitated upon the porcelain throne, let me show you. In my ultra-scientific, completely fair testing environment, I worked out how much time it takes to traverse the length of this room using sneak. 8 minutes. And this is how much distance you cover running as a male orc with 0 encumbrance, 30 speed and 5 athletics. Yes, 2 seconds. To cover 2 seconds of running, it takes 8 minutes of doing the crab. Interestingly, the smaller your character, the slower you move using this method. It takes a wood elf, the smallest race in the game, almost 12 minutes to cover the same distance. That means that in this challenge, I am moving at roughly 0.004% the speed of running. At around the 17 hours mark, roughly 10 hours after leaving Buckmoth Legion Fort, I arrive at Ghostgate. However, there's a small problem. It takes about 7 minutes to move from the gate switch to the gate itself, but the gate closes after about 15 seconds. I figure that maybe I can place a mark near the gate, crab over to the switch, flip it, then recall back. Then it's just a case of moving as far as I can while the gate's open, before placing another mark. If I do this over and over, I'll eventually pass through the gate, right? Well, not exactly. I get stuck in the gate. A lot. Sometimes, when I'm stuck and I save and reload, it frees my character. I try abusing this to see if I can phase through the gate, but it doesn't seem to work. A shame, I was really going for that world record speedrun. Anyway, I just end up brute forcing the entry with mark and recall. And apologies for the poor contrast here. I did adjust the gamma values in game, but that does nothing for the recordings. I'm watching the footage back as I'm doing this voiceover, and even after correcting it, the fact that my character's in very dark clothing and that I'm in the beigest fucking tunnel ever doesn't make for the best viewing experience. Just bear with me though, this won't take long. Moments like this make me wish you could cast mark on target rather than just on self. Imagine how much easier this would be. As I approach the final gate, I can already start to hear the moaning of zombies and the screeches of cliff racers. I dispatch them, level up to level 4, and crab my way up Red Mountain. For the next 5 hours, I pick off any ash slaves, rats or zombies that I can see with my bound bow. But about halfway to Vemenol, I see this rat that's alive but isn't moving. It's watching me as I slowly slide by, just staring. I've never experienced this behaviour in Morrowind before, so if you have any clues as to what's going on here, please let me know. There's also another rat further ahead that's behaving how I'd expect. I'm guessing that one hasn't noticed me because of the sneaking, but this one definitely has. You can see it tracking me. I try swinging my hammer to see if it does anything. Nope, it remains frozen. As I swing my hammer some more, I have an epiphany. I notice that I'm actually moving slightly every time I swing. So, I turn off Always Use Best Attack to see if the other attack animations exhibit this behaviour. And they do, although to varying degrees of movement. Now the thought comes to me, what about other weapon types? Shooting a bound bow doesn't do anything. What if I wait for a Dark Brotherhood assassin and use his dagger? So, I wait, get the next day delivery and equip the dagger. Slashing doesn't move me that much, nor does thrusting, but oh my god, look at how fast I move when I chop with the dagger. This is a game changer. Back in my ultra-scientific, completely fair testing environment, I can cover 2 seconds of running in about 30 seconds of chopping, much faster than 8 minutes of crab sneaking. And you can even combine sneaking with chopping, which is even faster, clearing the same distance in roughly 18 seconds. This works in both Open Morrowind and in the base engine, although the sneak and chop combo seems to be more effective in the base engine. And this is where it all starts to make sense. When I hit level 4 earlier, and by earlier I mean like 6 hours ago, I was given a message. It's all suddenly obvious to you. You just have to concentrate. All this energy and time you've wasted, it's a sin. But without the experience you've gained, taking risks, taking responsibility for failure, how could you have understood? Thanks, game. After I recorded this challenge, I did a bit more digging to see what other attacks you can use to circumvent over-encumbrance. And this attack has to be the most interesting. Meet the Beast Race two-handed chop animation. Men and Mer can do this, but it's less effective for movement. You see, when you chop as a Beast Race with a two-handed weapon, they take a large step forward and then a large step back to their original position. Which is great, but what if there was a way to harness that forward movement? Well, you can, by animation cancelling with sneak. So, if you chop and tap the sneak button just after your character extends their leg forward, then you'll interrupt the step backwards and will have moved forward a short distance. With a macro and somewhat good timing, I can cross the length of our testing cell in about 4.8 seconds, much faster than the dagger. If you know of any other ways to move while over encumbered that I haven't discussed here, please let me know in the comments. Anyway, having come so far already, I wasn't about to start again as a beast race, so back to chopping it is. Not yet used to my speed, I run ass first into a shork beetle that gives me a blight disease. This is the disadvantage of this movement method. Unless you want to turn around every 30 seconds, you don't know what you're running into. I'm at the point now where I have to turn away from the other citadels to go towards Vemenol, so I cast a mark here for later. Also, I'm still saving and reloading a lot because even with this new method of moving, stepping when I turn the camera in third person still locks my character in place. I snipe away with reckless abandon before arriving at the first of the Dwemer fortresses, Vemenol. The first two enemies in here were kind enough to come to me, how polite. I chop my way down the corridor, killing Dagoth Nylor to sate my boredom. Dagoth Sequid almost has me here, but one overpowered potion later and it's GG's. I notice Dagoth Vemin has a little trouble with the door down there, so I help him reach the other side. And that is Sunder collected, now to recall and get keening. Now that I'm back outside, I notice the variation in my speed here is strange. It looks like the incline of the mountain affects how far my character moves when chopping. I don't know if I was just getting stuck on geometry that's too steep, or if I was positioning my camera incorrectly. I think it might just be down to my macro timing being wrong though. When I get to Dagoth's citadel, I cast Mark. Then I get reminded why you shouldn't rest in Red Mountain. I'm convinced that I've broken the game. Watch how I get absolutely yeeted by this shork beetle. I've never seen anyone get knocked back like that. I didn't even think knockback was a thing that existed in this game. Taking a few moments to recollect myself, I graciously slip down the mountain, kill an ash slave and a zombie, then enter into Odrasol. I turn the Golden Saint into a pincushion and take her staff. I mess around for a bit here with the glass staff, seeing if I can use it to move faster. No luck though. I don't think it's any better than my Warhammer. Again, if I were a beast race, it'd have been an improvement. I head to the tower containing keening. I sneak over towards the dagger, but I can't quite reach it. However, the telekinesis spell extends my range enough that I can grab it from a distance. Now on to Dagoth. I cast Recall to teleport back to the Citadel. Now I was expecting this to be one of the harder bosses of this challenge, but the fact that I discovered the hash slinging slasher technique sort of trivialises this encounter. In my testing, I had to use the Mark and Recall spells multiple times, just like I did at Ghostgate, except the positioning for this door was much stricter. Now that I'm moving much faster, I can activate the crank, and then recall just once to get inside. Soldier Boy would be so proud. I decide to test out my bound mace on the first of my victims. It works effectively, does more damage than my steel warhammer, and is faster. However, it doesn't move me as much as the dagger does, emotionally and physically. This ash vampire doesn't entertain the idea of coming into melee range with me, so I end up wasting this cast of bound mace. That's fine. If he wants to play games with my feelings, I'll play games with his existence. I clear out the area pretty quickly thanks to my constant health regen. Yes, I get it, alchemy is boring. I don't usually break the game with alchemy for this very reason. It's just that I thought maybe I could save some time here by not having to collect Wraithguard. And it'd also save time by trivialising the fights, so I wouldn't have to reload as much. Ironically, I've been reloading more than ever, thanks to it resetting the movement lock. If I was doing this from the start, with the knowledge of chop moving, I definitely would have collected and fixed Wraithguard. Since I was only moving with sneak, even small distances would take hours, so it would have taken too long and would have been far too boring. I grabbed the glass armour from the tower. This has to be one of the best looking glass armours in the franchise. What do you think? I also feel like the zombies in this game are a little too easy, especially if you're attacking from range. If they were placed in groups, you know, like how we usually see them in fiction, maybe they'd be more threatening. There's an idea for a video. This greater bone walker jump scares me and I lose all of my strength. Look, even the blue bar disappears. This does suck though, because now my damage is going to drop considerably, even with my longbow. Dagoth Guna tries hot tub streaming, but the tub is too hot. An unfortunate side effect of this is that I can't loot his amulet now, even with telekinesis, as apparently lava counts as a solid surface. I take the strength potion I made earlier in anticipation of the final showdown, and as I was saying earlier, damage scales with your strength. Each point above 50 strength is equivalent to a 1% gain in the strength modifier, so having 1661 strength is a lot of damage. If I hadn't convinced you already that alchemy is a joke in this game, let me show you instead. Poor Daddy Dagoth. Didn't even have time to give me his usual monologue. Oh, never mind. Dagoth's health in the second phase resets to 1000 every single frame. Based on my weapon damage, strength modifier, and weapon condition, the max I could have hit for here is 890 damage, 110 damage shy of killing him in his immortal state. It might sound like a lot, but with all the modifiers going on, if I were to use a Daedric arrow instead of a chitin one, or if I hit him with a sneak attack, he would have died. Oh well, enough of the yapping. I struggle for a bit as I try to find out if I can actually kill him or not, but ultimately end up giving up, taking some restore health potions, and moving towards the edge of the platform. I also have to take my fortify health potion early, because he can still hit me after mitigation for more than my current health, which just instantly kills me, even though my health bar fills back up. I shimmy off the edge, landing on the bridge, and proceed towards the heart of Lorkhorn. I get to the heart and pull out Sunder, only for it to kill me. Weird. I should have enough health, right? Nope. I ended up losing all of my temporary health after taking fall damage and getting peppered by Dagoth. To be honest, I'm not sure I'd have survived the fall to the bridge anyway without taking the potion. A reason happens for everything, I guess. So now I need to find a way to destroy the heart without the tools killing me. And even though I'm 27.5 hours in, I can still find use out of one of the oldest speedrunning techniques in Morrowind history. That is, the quick key menu exploit for Sunder and Keening. By quickly swapping Sunder and Keening out for this Daedric club using the quick keys, I can minimise the time I'm holding the tools. I have to strike the heart of Lorkhorn once with Sunder and then 5 times with Keening to destroy it. Using the exploit, I strike the heart with Sunder, then I quick save and begin doing the same thing with Keening. And while I don't execute it perfectly here, I eventually do it well enough to take down the heart without the mortal wounds effect kicking in. One thing I have to mention here is one of the reasons I picked an orc was for the racial power berserk, which I don't even end up using. It really would have come in handy here for the extra hit chance against the heart. Damn, he's pissed. I say goodbye to Dagoth one last time, and I cross the bridge with my trusty iron dagger in hand. The Kulakon is destroyed, and I make my way back to the facility cavern so that Azura can grant me release from this torment. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you beat Morrowind without running or walking or swimming. Did you know you can beat Morrowind without really even being the main character? Watch this video here where I accompany the real Nerevarine and beat Morrowind using only restoration spells. And before I wrap this up, I just want to say thanks to everyone for the amount of support I received on the last video. I originally made that for my friend who wanted to see what a restoration only run of Morrowind would look like, but done as a challenge run style video with commentary. Going forward, I plan to continue making these challenge style videos, and I have a few more Morrowind videos planned. But I'll also be making content on other Bethesda games, and beyond that, who knows, you guys can let me know what you'd like to see. Anyways, I've been Mehrunes Mike, thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next one.